What's the science behind mirrors? Mirrors function essentially as reality duplicators for light rays. You position yourself before one, and an immediate replica gazes back at you. But what's actually happening? Light rebounds. That's the entire explanation. When photons, these minuscule bundles of light energy, strike an object, they typically disperse in countless directions. Similar to when you scatter candy across the floor, items like your clothing, your walls, your pet, all reflect light in a chaotic manner, which is why you simply perceive colors and textures. However, a mirror possesses incredible smoothness, genuinely smoother than your skin surface or your mobile device display. Consequently, when light strikes its surface, the photons rebound at precisely the identical angle they arrived at. Scientists call this specular reflection. Essentially, light enters, light exits. Identical sequence, simply inverted. But what causes it to reverse what you observe? Left becomes right, yet not top to bottom. The reality is, it actually doesn't. Mirrors don't genuinely flip anything whatsoever. Your mind simply interprets it that way. Here's the actual process occurring. When you elevate your right hand, the mirror displays your right hand. It remains on the right portion of your body. Nothing has actually relocated. The sole distinction is that now it's oriented toward you. So your mind processes, hold on, that appears reversed. The reflective surface is typically just a slender coating of aluminum or silver adhered to glass material. That's what generates the reflection. Without that coating, a mirror would simply be a see-through piece of glass material. What causes onions to trigger tears? Onions appear harmless. They're simply small vegetable spheres resting peacefully in your kitchen space. Then you slice one apart and your eyes begin burning intensely. What's the explanation? Within every onion exist microscopic cells containing various chemicals, all coexisting peacefully until you cut through it. Your blade is essentially demolishing those cellular structures. When that occurs, two distinct chemicals encounter each other for the first time ever. One represents an enzyme, the other represents a sulfur-based compound. Combine them together, and they generate a completely new chemical substance with an intimidating name, syn-propanethyl S-oxide. That particular chemical transforms into a gaseous state, and when it rises up toward your face, your eyes react with alarm. They interpret this as an assault, so they transmit a signal to your tear-producing glands. Eliminated immediately, your body essentially power washes your eyeballs as though they're experiencing combustion. Onions didn't develop this capability to destroy your culinary experience. It's genuinely a protective mechanism to prevent creatures from consuming them. As it happens, it proves ineffective. We continue eating them regardless. We simply shed tears simultaneously. If you desire to cry less intensely, refrigerate the onion before slicing. The cold temperature decelerates the chemical reaction process. Alternatively, slice it beneath flowing water so the gas cannot reach your eyes. Or, you could don a complete set of swimming goggles. What's the explanation for hiccups? Hiccups represent essentially your diaphragm experiencing a fit. Your diaphragm is a substantial muscle positioned beneath your lungs that facilitates breathing. It descends when you draw breath in, ascends when you release breath out. Typically, it functions smoothly, but occasionally it simply experiences spasms. When that transpires, your lungs abruptly inhale air excessively rapidly. Your vocal cords shut forcefully, and that produces the characteristic hic noise. Why does it experience spasms initially? It could result from numerous reasons. Perhaps you consumed food too rapidly, or drank something carbonated, or laughed so intensely your breathing pattern became disrupted. Sometimes it's because your stomach is completely full and applying pressure on the diaphragm. Scientists aren't completely certain why humans experience hiccups, but one hypothesis is that it's a remaining reflex from ancient times when we were microscopic tadpole-like organisms mastering breathing. Essentially, your body is still maintaining an evolutionary malfunction. The majority of hiccups disappear independently, but that doesn't prevent people from creating bizarre remedies. You've probably encountered the primary ones: suspending your breath, consuming water while inverted, being frightened extremely intensely. Do they actually function? They potentially can, but perhaps you simply ceased hiccuping coincidentally and attributed the success to your companion's method. How do cats consistently land upright? If you release a cat, carefully, naturally, unless circumstances have gone extremely poorly, it's going to rotate during freefall and execute the landing like a professional gymnast. This isn't fortune or chance. It's designated the righting reflex, and it represents one of the most impressive examples of biological engineering nature ever developed. The righting reflex activates the precise moment a cat's mind recognizes it's descending. Within their inner ear exists a specialized equilibrium system, the vestibular apparatus, which functions like the planet's most miniature gyroscope device. It perpetually monitors which direction is upward, even when the cat is rotating rapidly. The instant the cat detects it's inverted, a sequence of reactions commences. Phase 1. The head rotates. The cat fixates its vision on the surface like a combat pilot aligning a runway. Phase 2. The forward portion of the body rotates one direction. The rear portion rotates the opposite direction. Cats can accomplish this because their spinal columns are incredibly flexible. They possess more vertebrae than humans do and lack a rigid collarbone to obstruct movement. Phase 3. Once oriented the correct direction, they extend all four limbs, curve their backs, and expand slightly. This amplifies air resistance, decelerating the descent, somewhat like a miniature parachute constructed of fur. Cats are also remarkably lightweight for their dimensions, which indicates they don't impact the surface with as tremendous force as a more massive creature. Actually, beyond a particular altitude, they genuinely have additional time to modify and decelerate their descent, which explains why certain cats have survived ridiculously elevated falls. There's even terminology for this phenomenon, high-rise syndrome. Veterinarians utilize it to characterize cats that have descended from residential buildings and departed with negligible injuries. The righting reflex commences developing in kittens at merely a few weeks of age, and by approximately 7 weeks, the majority have perfected it. It's innate, not learned behavior. Your cat cannot attend Falling Academy. It's simply born with the software pre-installed. Why does your voice sound altered in recordings? You recognize that instant when someone replays a video and you immediately question, who is that person? Yeah, unfortunate information. That's simply you. Here's the situation. When you vocalize, you're perceiving your voice through two completely distinct methods simultaneously. First is the conventional method. Sound vibrations travel outward from your mouth through the atmosphere into your ear passage, oscillate your eardrum, and your mind processes. Excellent, that's me speaking. Second is the concealed method. Those sound vibrations simultaneously travel through the skeletal structures and tissue inside your cranium. This bone conduction incorporates a profound, abundant base layer to your voice, like your skull is operating its own exclusive subwoofer system. That's the voice you're accustomed to perceiving every single day of your existence. The difficulty, a microphone doesn't reside inside your head. It cannot perceive that additional bass enhancement your skull provides you. It exclusively captures the air version of your voice, the more slender, elevated pitched, somewhat more nasal version that other individuals perceive constantly. When you replay that recording, your mind is perplexed. It's comparable to experiencing a song you've exclusively heard through quality headphones, but now it's projecting from an inferior phone speaker. This explains why your recorded voice feels so peculiar and unfamiliar. It's not that the recording isn't accurate. It's that your mind's been deceiving you your complete existence. Your everyday voice has been enhanced by bone conduction. And without that enhancement, you feel vulnerable and exposed. The positive information, everyone else already recognizes this recording voice, and they're completely comfortable with it. They're not perceiving anything unusual or strange. You're simply encountering the genuine public version of yourself for the initial time. How does Bluetooth technology function? Bluetooth represents essentially short-distance invisible sorcery, except it's genuinely just radio wave transmission. It's the explanation your headphones can communicate to your phone, and your phone can communicate to your automobile. Here's what's transpiring. Bluetooth transmits data utilizing extremely low-power radio waves. Instead of broadcasting across the entire city like FM radio stations, it remains in a miniature bubble, typically about 30 feet radius, so it doesn't exhaust your battery or interfere with your neighbor's speaker system. Both devices, suppose your phone and your earbuds, contain miniature Bluetooth chips internally. These chips establish agreement on a frequency, commence transmitting signals reciprocally, and there you have it, they're synchronized. But here's the fascinating component. Bluetooth doesn't monopolize one channel exclusively. It utilizes frequency hopping, alternating between 79 distinct channels, hundreds of instances per second. That indicates even if your Wi-Fi or someone else's Bluetooth is in proximity, it can evade the interference. Information, whether it's musical content, a telephone conversation, or that photograph you shouldn't have wirelessly transferred, gets fragmented into minuscule packets. Each packet traverses across these frequencies in a confidential pattern exclusively the two devices comprehend. That's the reason some arbitrary person can't simply tune in and monitor your playlist. The distance and velocity depend on the version of Bluetooth you're utilizing. More recent ones transmit farther, faster, and consume less power. However, the fundamental concept has been identical since the 1990s. Minuscule bursts of radio waves hopping between channels, making two gadgets perform like they've been closest companions eternally. Why does your brain overlook the second "the"? Read that statement again. You probably overlooked the second "the" completely, and that's the entire purpose. Here's what's transpiring. Your brain is inherently lazy and efficiency-focused. It adores predicting what's arriving next so it can conserve time and mental energy. When you read text, your brain isn't examining every individual letter carefully. It's scanning for recognizable patterns and completing the blanks. It's like autocomplete functionality for cognitive processes. So, when you observe an extremely common phrase like the cat or in the, your brain is already progressing halfway through the sentence before your vision has even completed it. If there are two consecutively, your brain's like, affirmative, affirmative, I comprehended it, and simply eliminates one. It's not a malfunction in your visual organs. They observe both words clearly. It's a malfunction in your attention mechanism. This explains why you can review something 10 instances and still overlook obvious errors. Your brain is excessively occupied being helpful and predicting the subsequent thing to notice what's genuinely there. Desire to capture the second "the"? Read more slowly or read in reverse, word by individual word. It disrupts your brain's prediction pattern. Otherwise, you'll simply continue skipping over the second, the without even recognizing it. How does caffeine operate in your body? Caffeine represents the planet's most socially acceptable pharmaceutical substance. It's present in your coffee beverage, your tea, your carbonated drinks, your energy beverages, and even in chocolate products. We all behave like it's simply a minor pick-me-up stimulant. So, what's it genuinely accomplishing to you internally? Your body operates on a chemical substance called adenosine. Throughout the entire day, adenosine accumulates in your brain and generates feelings of tiredness. It's comparable to sand accumulating in an hourglass timer. When sufficient quantity of it assembles, your brain declares, acceptable, time for sleeping. Caffeine's primary strategy, it appears just like adenosine to your brain's receptors. So, when you consume coffee, caffeine molecules accelerate in and commence inserting themselves into the adenosine receptors, the miniature docking stations that typically generate sleepy feelings. However, caffeine doesn't stimulate them, it simply obstructs them. Your brain's essentially attempting to activate the tired button, and caffeine is positioned on it declaring, negative, not today. With the sleep signals obstructed, your brain's other chemical substances become hyperactive. Dopamine and adrenaline receive a boost. Your heart rate accelerates, and you feel more alert, concentrated, perhaps even somewhat superhuman. The difficulty? Caffeine doesn't provide you genuine energy. It simply conceals your tiredness temporarily. When it diminishes, all that adenosine arrives flooding back simultaneously, which explains why people experience a crash sensation. Your body also develops tolerance to caffeine over time, so you require more for the identical effect, which is how people construct serious caffeine dependencies. What's the explanation for yawning? Yawning is something every human performs, but scientists still don't completely concur on the explanation. For multiple decades, the most prevalent explanation was oxygen intake. The concept that yawning facilitates bringing more air into your respiratory system when you require it. It appeared logical initially. Intake a substantial breath, obtain a boost of oxygen, problem resolved. However, research has demonstrated that yawning still transpires even when your oxygen concentrations are perfectly adequate. So, the traditional theory doesn't completely maintain validity. A more recent concept concentrates on brain temperature regulation. Your brain operates optimally within an extremely specific temperature range, and when it becomes excessively warm, it can decelerate. Yawning might facilitate cooling it down. When you yawn, you intake a profound breath of cooler air, extend the muscles in your facial area, and amplify blood circulation in your cranium. All of which can facilitate bringing the temperature down marginally. This might explain why yawning is more prevalent in warm surroundings, or when you're fatigued and your brain has been functioning for an extended time. There's also the contagious aspect of yawning. Observing, hearing, or even reading about a yawn can generate you doing it too. This could be connected to empathy and social connection, a method for groups of creatures, including humans, to synchronize their states of alertness and rest. So, while the precise explanation isn't completely proven, the most probable explanation is that yawning is your brain's method of regulating itself, a built-in cooling and reset mechanism that simply happens to spread from individual to individual. Comment if this section has generated you a yawn, and I desire you to contemplate yawning right now. Ha ha ha! Positive fortune with that. How does Face ID recognize it's you? Face ID operates significantly like your brain does when it observes a companion across the space, except it utilizes lasers, mathematics, and substantially more precision. When you observe your phone, miniature sensors near the forward camera project more than 30,000 invisible infrared dots onto your facial surface. These dots generate a three-dimensional depth map, capturing every contour, the curve of your cheeks, the configuration of your jaw, the elevation of your nose. It's not simply a photograph, it's a complete mathematical representation of your face. The infrared camera then captures a picture of those dots and the remainder of your face in infrared illumination. This data is transformed into a series of numerical values, a unique facial signature, and compared against the encrypted version preserved inside your phone from when you initially established Face ID. If the two correspond closely sufficiently, your phone unlocks access. It's engineered to operate in various lighting conditions with hats, glasses, or even facial hair modifications. That's because Face ID doesn't simply rely on surface characteristics. It measures the depth and relative positions of your features, which are more difficult to modify. So, when you glance at your phone and it simply opens, it's not guessing randomly. It's reading a complex three-dimensional map of you in under a second, deciding with near-perfect accuracy whether it's genuinely you and permitting you to unlock your device.